Remember the guy Democrats swore was just a dad who wanted a better life? The one that they painted as some innocent family man wrongfully deported?
He's a
How about
family
this?
man.
How about
He's
this?
a dad
I don't.
from
What
Maryland.
Yeah, that guy. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They demanded we bring him back, said it was about justice, compassion, and due process, you name it. And hilariously, they just got their wish. He's back in the US, but not for a photo op. He's here to face federal criminal charges, transporting migrants for cash, domestic violence allegations, the works. And here's the best part. This whole segment played out on CNN, and normally I wouldn't share a clip from CNN, especially one that's a little bit on the longer side, but the meltdown they have is just too funny to resist. The same network that echoed just a dad narrative is now sitting there trying to explain how this guy went from victim to criminal defendant in real time. This is one of those rare accidental truth-telling moments you don't want to miss. This is Andy with TrendingPolitics.com. Hit that like button and subscribe. Let's dive in.
Tonight, first they said deporting him was a mistake. Then they said he was never coming back. But now,
Abrego Garcia has landed in the United States to face justice.
the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, after saying that they mistakenly deported him to El Salvador, a prison there, and after saying that they had no way to get him back, the Justice Department has announced that he is back on American soil. But now he faces charges related to unlawfully transporting migrants for financial gain. And the news was even a surprise to his attorneys.
We learned about it on TV just like the rest of the country.
So why the sudden reversal from the Trump administration? Remember this post from the White House back in April? Their social media team edited the front page of the New York Times and changed the headline to say that Abrego Garcia was, quote, never coming back. And even after the Supreme Court said that the White House needed to facilitate his return, Trump and the DOJ said that their hands were tied. But something over the last 2 months apparently changed.
That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane. Our government presented El Salvador with an arrest warrant, and they agreed to return him to our country. We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges.
Even El Salvador's president said Abrego Garcia's return was never going to happen.
The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But now President Bukele makes it sound like Abrego Garcia's release was a simple ask. He wrote this on X. We work with the Trump administration, and if they request the return of a gang member to face charges, of course we wouldn't refuse. Joining us at the table is attorney Dante Mills. He is a law professor at Temple University's Beasley School of Law. And this was always a big question in this case, which is the accusation that he was a really bad guy, an MS-13 gang member had been made by the Trump administration, but they never wanted to charge him, it seemed, with those alleged crimes. Now they have, because apparently they've done an investigation, but they could have done this 2.5 months ago.
Well, they could have. And this, to me, it's just political gamesmanship, but you don't want to mix that with our justice system. This is somebody who the administration deemed to be a bad person. So what they're doing is saying, let's go back and dig until we find something that justifies that. So now they're going to bring him back to the country where before they said they couldn't, right? There was no way that they can get him back here or help facilitate it. Now they put this indictment in front of a grand jury. He was indicted not for transporting or bringing people in and out of the country, but for moving people around inside the country. Now what they're saying is we're going to bring him back and prosecute him. That will trump any issues with immigration. So if he's found guilty of this crime, he can be deported, and whatever protections he had in place will go away. So he can, in fact, be deported back to his home country.
Right. Again, they could have done this from the beginning.
A lot of people have had the same conclusion throughout this process. Republicans have made this a political football. And what Democrats have said is that this is about due process. And yes, before we go down this really unique, dark path of are illegal immigrants entitled to due process, the answer is yes. The 5th and 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution says that everybody in the United States of America, regardless of your citizenship or status, has due process. So that is a fundamental right that even illegal immigrants have. So my point to everyone under the sound of my voice for so long was bring him back, go through due process, and if you are convicted of a crime, if you committed a crime, if you are illegal here and have committed a crime, deport them. There is no one who is against that. Please deport him. But he deserves due process like everybody else. And the reason being is because if you don't give Abrego Garcia due process, then the next person they won't give due process is you. And that is a fact. That always happens. It's happened through the history of this country. That is a fact. And if we want to rewrite the Constitution, I see my friend Scott, I don't know if he's shaking his head or if he's shaking his head because of this guy that's behind him that's over there eating. I like being able to see him, but this guy in the back eating his sandwich, he just got up, but you can see him in every shot. I don't know if you're shaking your head at me or him, but the fact is he deserves due process.
You know, I suspect that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, when he heard that Saint Abrego Garcia was coming back, took a shower, put on his nice suit, got on Open Table, found out what maybe party of two reservation they could get for tonight so they could continue the bromance they started when he went back to visit Saint Abrego in El Salvador. Look, he was not deported because he was a bad guy. He was deported because he was an illegal immigrant living in the country illegally for 14 years, who had gone through due process, who had an existing deportation order. It so happens that it turns out he may in fact well be a really, really bad person that we would not want in the country. Here are his possible outcomes. Number one, he gets convicted of this stuff and goes to prison for a long time. Number two, he gets acquitted and goes back to El Salvador, which is what I suspect the White House would do with him if he somehow gets out of these charges. Either way, it's what the White House said all along. There's no future where the Maryland man goes back to Maryland to live quietly in the suburbs.
But that's not the point, though, Scott, and I'll let you chime in. I mean, you're a better lawyer than I took the bar a couple times. You probably only had to take it once. So I took it once. Yeah, I had to take it a couple times. So we haven't. So we'll deal with that. But my point is, Scott, like due process. I mean, the 5th and 14th.
He had some. He got some.
You don't get some, Scott.
He got
That's
plenty.
the thing. Like
he got more than he deserved.
You don't get a chance to give me some due process.
Everybody
I need it
has
all or
due
nothing.
process that they're owed. I think we all should agree with that. But there's a second component here where we're talking about selective prosecution. Now they're bringing him back and charging him with this crime for facts that they've known since 2022. There's no new evidence.
Who knew them in 2022?
It's on video.
Who knew them?
The stop was on video.
What administration?
This was investigated and determined that it wasn't anything illegal.
The Biden administration, and they chose to let him go.
But
we
hold
have a new
on,
administration.
Hold on 1 second.
No, this is selective prosecution. That's not fair.
What you're saying that this happened in 2022 is true, but I do think that the idea that the Trump administration chose only very recently, it seems, to go down this road of actually investigating alleged crimes, that is also something that seems to be pretty clear. And there are some questions about that. I mean, if this guy were on their radar for deportation for being an MS-13 member, why didn't they investigate this, charge him, and deport him for those crimes? I want to make sure you get in. I just want to note, one of the interesting things about this that we found out today, a 15-year veteran of the U.S. Attorney's Office and the chief of the criminal division in Nashville, a guy named Ben Schrader, he resigned from his position the same week that this went to a grand jury. And according to our reporting, there are concerns that there are cases like this, perhaps this case, that is being politicized. Now, we don't know what that could entail, but clearly the question is being raised.
And we want to
here.
get you in, but he also said very cryptically, he when he resigned, he said, the years that I've been here, I've done things the right way, the right thing.
He says, the only job description I've ever known is to do the right thing in the right way for the right reasons. That's what he wrote on LinkedIn.
I mean, there's a reason I'm not yelling to jump in, and that's because what no one is saying is we don't know who he is or what he's done. You don't know that he's a bad guy, and you don't know that he's a good guy. I'm not saying either of you have said that. I'm just saying this man has become a poster child for the left and the right, while no one knows who he is or what he did. That's the problem, because this case was handled so badly. And the incompetence, putting aside the emotional aspect on both sides of this, the incompetence in the way that this was handled, we'll shoot first, ask questions later. We're going to deport him first and then find the crime. We're going to say we can't bring him back and then we're going to bring him back. We don't know what he did. Now, he got indicted by a grand jury. A grand jury, as we all know, can indict a ham sandwich. But this is our process, and I'm willing to trust the process. If they find through this process that he broke the law, in addition to breaking the law by coming in here illegally, I grant you that, Scott, he should be punished for that. But everyone has decided who this man is before anyone knows what he did.
Can I just play one thing? This is Texas Representative Vicente Gonzalez, who actually raised some questions for Democrats about how they've handled this case. Listen.
And I've said from the very beginning, when I read cases and complaints against him, I knew that he wasn't no little angel, and I thought we had a potential criminal on our hands. And if this turns out to be a legitimate indictment, which I assume it would be, he's going to have to face charges here in the United States. So certainly, I don't think we should be advocating for Abrego Garcia as if he's some, Johnny Appleseed, as I said, because he's not. But we should be advocating for rule of law in America and that we respect federal judicial court orders.
That's my point. And I mean, and to Essie, just to push back on Essie, I'm not saying that he's a great guy. I mean, I know you said that wasn't attributed to us.
Right.
No one is saying that.
Well, no one.
I am.
Because
I will
plenty
literally
of Democrats,
say that.
plenty of
How about
Democrats
this? How about this?
He's a
How about
family
this?
man.
How about this?
He's a dad from
what I am
Maryland.
saying is
And?
family man, illegal, undocumented, whatever.
Criminal.
What I am saying is that he deserves due process.
Of course.
And that is my only point. That's my point from the beginning.
That's
And
your
so-
only point.
But,
It's
and that's
not
fine.
been the narrative that
I get
Democrats
an
or
opportunity.
Republicans have
That's
been
fine, and I
making.
get an opportunity in front of a million people watching
Due
Abby right
process
now.
isn't also you can just make me some kind of poster child and turn the Justice Department against me. That's what's happening here.
Guys, you all.
This guy wouldn't have been.
You all
he was
are
in a car
completely-
on video.
You all are completely downplaying what we know. We know plenty about this person.
What?
We know that he lived in the country illegally for 14
I
years.
said
I know
that.
it's okay with you.
I said that.
That's
That's
number
not
one.
a,
We know.
time
we
out.
know.
Time out. No.
We
No,
know.
that's
We
not.
know.
That is not
Why-
okay
why-
with me. But
why
that's
don't-
not.
why don't I get defended?
But that's not a.
Hold on,
But that is
hold on.
literally.
First of all, we all know that you both
Supreme
interrupt
Court
each other all
knows
the
that
time.
that is not a crime.
To live in the country illegally?
That's not a crime. That's a status offense. Stop telling people stuff that's
Okay.
not true.
I am just, my mind is so blown here.
Go ahead and
by the
finish.
last 2 nights
Scott,
with you about
It's
this
not a
illegal
criminal
immigration.
offense.
Bakari,
Can you-
just give, can we
It's
give
a civil violation.
Bakari, can we give Scott
So
a
Yes,
he's
but-
in the
finish,
country
please?
illegally
Thank
14
you.
years. That's number one. We also know what his wife told the courts and law enforcement about him. That he was violent, that he beat her.
But he's not being charged with that.
That he
That's
was.
hearsay.
That he was. So you said we don't know if he's a bad guy.
We don't.
I trust his wife when she runs off and says, "Please protect me from
What
this
if his
man."
wife said, this man's
Prosecute him.
great? You wouldn't trust her? That's
you're
insane.
acting like we don't know things. We
Prosecute
do know
him.
things. We
Prosecute
know.
him.
And so,
Prosecute
at
him.
a minimum, what we know should be more than enough for anybody at this table to say, yes, please
Scott,
get
let
him
me
the
ask you
hell
this.
out.
Let me ask you this. Do you
the
think,
hell-
Prosecute him.
let me ask you this. Do you think they charged him to try to save face? Yes or no? Honestly,
I think
do
they
you
charged him
believe
because
they
he
charged him
committed
with a crime
crimes.
to try to save face? Yes or no?
I
So,
think they charged him because he
Scott.
committed serious crimes, apparently.
Scott,
That's why they charged
can we
him.
agree on this? He
Last
should be
word.
prosecuted for domestic violence. He should be prosecuted for every crime he committed. And when he's found guilty, he should be deported.
I think he should be deported anyway, regardless of this other stuff.
That-
to me,
but-
the only issue that
so
ever
does
really
the con-
mattered was that he was in the country illegally.
Does the Constitution work or not?
Yeah, and he had a deportation.
But now we're
order. Agree or
bringing in
disagree?
to where the
Okay.
justice.
Part of me can't help but wonder if the left hadn't made this guy the poster child for their illegal deportation issue, would his life at home and his home country of El Salvador actually have been better than being returned to the US to face charges? Ironic. This is Andy with TrendingPolitics.com. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.